The marble hallway stretches before him like a blade of ice. Rafael Caruso stands in the doorway of the study, watching through the opening into the room beyond, and what he sees there stops his breathing in a way that no heart attack ever could. Sofia Winters kneels on the floor beside his daughter Emma, 5 years old, dark curls falling across her small face, and the child's arms wrapped tight around Sofia's neck. A bandage visible on Sofia's inner arm, white gauze taped where the needle went in 3 hours earlier, where she gave her blood for the twins. Emma whispers something into Sofia's shoulder, and Sofia laughs, a real laugh, not the careful, frightened thing he heard when she first arrived at the mansion, and the little girl's face transforms into something radiant. The words tear out of Rafael before he can stop them. She is already bleeding for my children. Now she is calling one of them Mama. His voice cracks. Actual cracks, the way glass fractures when struck at exactly the right angle. Marco stands frozen behind him, his lieutenant of 15 years, and even in the corner of his vision Rafael can feel Marco's shock radiating like heat. In 15 years, Marco has never heard his boss's voice do this. Break. Surrender. Sound like a man who has just realized that everything he thought he understood about power and control was a lie. The humid August air presses through the open windows of the mansion, thick enough to taste, carrying the smell of roses from the garden below and something else, the metallic tang of the storm building somewhere beyond the city. Thunder rumbles in the distance, so far away it sounds like a memory. Emma turns her head and sees Rafael in the doorway, and her entire body goes still. The way a small animal freezes when it senses danger. But she does not move away from Sofia. That detail destroys him more than anything else could. Now let us rewind. 3 hours earlier. 3 o'clock in the morning, the kind of hour when the city belongs to people who work at night and people running from something. The diner on Mission Street glows with fluorescent lights that buzz like insects trapped in glass, that particular sound that drives people toward madness if they listen to it too long. The smell inside hangs thick and permanent, burnt coffee overlaid with grease, the ghost of 10,000 meals cooked in the same oil, bleach that does not quite mask the stale air underneath. Sofia Winters moves through the kitchen with the exhaustion of someone who stopped feeling tired 6 hours ago and entered a different state entirely. Her delivery uniform is stained with coffee and something unidentifiable along the hem, and her hair is pulled back with a plastic clip so tight it pulls the skin at her temples. 27 years old but moving like someone who has already lived twice that long. She carries the order ticket in her right hand, pad thai, extra sauce on the side, tea with lemon, and she knows without counting that this meal will bring her total tonight to $74.38. After expenses, after the scooter gas that costs $8, after the 10% she has to split with the other drivers for using the diner as dispatch, she will have earned approximately $52 for this 9-hour shift. Her rent is due tomorrow. Not due. Past due. She is already 3 weeks behind, and the landlord stopped answering her calls after the second week of that. She steps out onto the hot street for a moment, just a moment, and pulls the crumpled foreclosure notice from her jacket pocket. The paper is soft now from how many times she has unfolded and refolded it, and the words have started to fade where her thumb presses. The fire was 6 months ago. The apartment was a 2-room place that cost too much even when she had the night shift at the hotel, before they cut her hours, before the construction accident that left her arm injured and unable to work for 4 weeks, before the medical bills that somehow totaled $47,000 for 2 emergency room visits and an MRI that showed nothing was broken but everything was bruised. She has $200 in her pocket. $200. That is the total of her liquid assets on the planet Earth. She counted it 3 times this morning to make sure it was real. The night is so warm it feels like drowning slowly. She tucks the foreclosure notice back into her pocket and returns to the diner. That is when Marco and Theo enter. They move through the door like men accustomed to doors opening before them, suits that cost more than Sofia's monthly rent stretched tight over broad shoulders, gold watches that catch the fluorescent light and throw it back in calculated angles. They do not look like they belong in a diner that serves pad thai at 3 in the morning. They look like they belong in offices with views, in restaurants with hidden doors, in the kind of places where money speaks in quiet voices and people listen. Behind them comes Rafael Caruso. He is tall, 6'2", maybe more, and his hair is dark, silvered at the temples in a way that suggests not age but intensity, as if the grey came from stress rather than years. His suit is black, perfectly tailored, and his shirt is white and open at the collar, showing the hollow of his throat. A scar runs from the corner of his left eye down to his cheekbone, a thin white line that looks like someone once tried to cut his face open and almost succeeded. His watch is gold. His hands are large, and when he sits in the corner booth, he sits like a man accustomed to being the most dangerous person in any room. The bodyguards position themselves at the table's edge. Marco directly across from him. Theo by the window where he can see both the street and the interior. Sofia approaches with the pad thai, careful not to make eye contact because she learned years ago that some men mistake eye contact for an invitation. She sets the plate down. She reaches for the water pitcher to refill his glass. That is when Rafael Caruso stops breathing. It is not dramatic. There is no gasp, no clutching at the chest. He simply goes still, the way machines go still when the power cuts out. His face, which was a normal color a moment ago, becomes gray. Not pale. Gray, like the color of concrete, like the color of things that are already dead. His hand goes to his chest, and when it does, something in his eyes shifts. Recognition. He knows what this is. He has time to know, and then his body pitches forward onto the table, his forehead nearly hitting the plate of pad thai. Marco and Theo move toward him, but they move the way men move in nightmares, slow, disoriented, their training useless in the face of this. Their boss. The man who owns them. Collapsing in a diner at 3 in the morning. Sofia does not think. This is important. Sofia does not think, does not calculate, does not weigh the risk against the reward. She drops the water pitcher, and it shatters on the tile floor with a sound that cuts through the diner like a blade, and she shoves Marco out of the way, actually physically pushes a man who outweighs her by 80 pounds, and gets to the booth. She checks for a pulse. Neck. Wrist. The faint flutter at his temple. She finds it. She finds him. And then she tips his head back, opens his mouth, and begins chest compressions. The silence that falls across the diner is almost complete. The fluorescent lights buzz. The rain that has begun outside patter against the windows. And Sofia counts aloud, pushing down on his chest, her small hands trying to drive his heart back into rhythm. 1, 2, 3. She breathes into his mouth. She tastes coffee and something else, something dark. 4, 5, 6. Marco stands frozen. Theo stands frozen. The diner owner stands frozen behind the counter, phone in hand, not moving toward 911 because he is not quite sure what he is witnessing is real. 7, 8, 9. Rafael Caruso's eyes snap open. He gasps, his entire body convulsing with the shock of suddenly being alive, and his eyes, storm grey, burning with something that looks almost like fury, fix on Sofia's face. She is still leaning over him, her hand still on his chest, her breath still coming in hard pulls. Her dark hair has come loose from the clip and hangs around her face. Her eyes are wide. Her delivery uniform is stained with his sweat. For a long moment, neither of them moves. Then Rafael Caruso, who owns half of San Francisco's underworld, who built an empire on violence and loyalty and the kind of power that men fear to speak of directly, whispers a single word. Water. His voice is raw, destroyed, but it is his voice, and it carries the weight of someone giving an order. Someone who is still alive. Still in control. Sofia reaches for the second water pitcher, the one that survived the crash of the first. Her hand shakes. When she pours the water, it splashes onto the table, and she hears the sound of it hitting the wood. Marco steps forward. His hand goes to his jacket, not for a weapon, not yet, but moving toward one. His eyes are locked on Sofia with an expression that has shifted from shock to something else. Something calculating. Something dangerous. But Rafael's hand lifts. Just slightly. A gesture. Marco stops. And in the space of that gesture, in the quarter second it takes for a powerful man to tell another powerful man to stand down, Sofia Winters has just changed the trajectory of her entire life. She does not know this yet. But it is already true. Thunder rolls across the city, closer now, and the rain begins in earnest. If you are still watching, if this story is pulling at something inside you, drop a like and subscribe so you don't miss what happens next. Share this with someone who needs to know that sometimes the smallest act of courage opens doors you could never have imagined. Now let us go back to the beginning of that day, to understand how a delivery girl with $200 in her pocket came to be the only person in the world that Rafael Caruso would trust with his life. The alarm on Sofia Winters' phone screams at 5:16 in the morning, and she does not move. She lies there in the darkness of the borrowed room, listening to the sound of a neighbor's television bleeding through the paper-thin walls of the Tenderloin apartment building, listening to the radiator clank like something dying, listening to the soft breathing of Emma asleep on the mattress on the floor beside her bed. Sofia does not move because moving means accepting that another day has started. Another day of not enough. Another day of arithmetic that does not add up. She finally sits up at 5:52. Her back cracks. Her knees hurt. At 26 years old, her body moves like a woman twice her age, all tightness and creaking, as if grief and hunger have literally calcified inside her bones. The room is small enough that she can reach Emma's mattress from her bed. She does. Her hand touches the girl's hair, dark and tangled from sleep, and Sofia whispers, "Good morning, baby." Emma does not open her eyes. She makes a small sound, a half-formed word, something between sleep and waking. Sofia has been Emma's legal guardian for 6 months. Emma's mother, Claire, was Sofia's roommate. They shared a 2-bedroom apartment in the Mission District before the fire. The fire took the apartment. The fire took Claire. The fire left Emma with no mother and Sofia with a child who is not hers by blood but who is hers in every way that matters. She kisses Emma's forehead and gets out of bed. The kitchen is not really a kitchen. It is a corner of the living room with a hot plate and a mini refrigerator that hums constantly. Sofia opens the refrigerator door, and the light spills across her face like a confession. There is a carton of milk from the food bank, a package of bread from the food bank, 3 eggs from the food bank, a jar of peanut butter. The food bank is the only reason Emma eats. Sofia cracks 2 eggs into a dented pan. She uses 1 egg for Emma and 1 for herself, but she will only let Emma eat the eggs. Sofia will eat the bread with peanut butter and tell Emma that she already ate at work. This is a lie Sofia tells every single day. The eggs sizzle. The sound is almost normal, almost like someone living a normal life in a normal kitchen with normal things to worry about. The illusion lasts for maybe 30 seconds. Emma appears in the kitchen doorway, still half asleep, still wearing the same clothes she wore yesterday because Sofia washes them at night after Emma is asleep. The girl is 6 years old. She should be in kindergarten, but Sofia is still fighting with the school district about enrollment paperwork. Everything requires documents Sofia does not have. Everything requires proof of residency at an address that does not exist anymore. "Mama, I'm hungry," Emma says, and uses a word that breaks Sofia's heart every single time she hears it. "I know, baby. Look what I made for you." The eggs slide onto a plate. Sofia pours milk into a juice glass that survived the fire. Everything that survived the fire is precious. The glass is pink. It has a stain shaped like a butterfly. Sofia inherited it from the fire, along with Emma, along with the crumpled foreclosure notice that lives in her pocket like a stone. Emma sits at the small table and begins to eat. Sofia stands beside her, watching, pretending not to be hungry, pretending that her stomach is not a closed fist of need. At 6:15, Sofia pulls out the foreclosure notice from the front pocket of her jeans. The paper is so creased that it nearly tears. The building owner is selling the lot where their old apartment stood, the lot that burned to nothing. Sofia has 5 days to provide $200,000 in documented losses, or she gets nothing from the insurance settlement. Nothing. The word echoes in her skull like a bell. Nothing, nothing, nothing. She has $200. Cash. In her wallet. That is all that remains of the existence she had before the fire. She folds the foreclosure notice and puts it back in her pocket. At 6:41, she dresses Emma in clothes from Goodwill that are slightly too big, anticipating growth, or hope, or both. The shirt is navy blue. The pants have a stain near the hem that Sofia scrubbed at for an hour and could not remove. She does not know that this is practice for a kind of love that does not require perfection. That someday, in a mansion with marble floors and crystal chandeliers, someone will teach her that the stain does not matter. At 7:15, Sofia checks her phone for her community college class schedule while Emma colors with broken crayons. The crayons are also from donations. The coloring book is from donations. Most of Emma's life is from donations now. Sofia studies a business administration flashcard while Emma draws. "What's that?" Emma asks, pointing at Sofia's phone. "Accounting principles," Sofia says. Her voice is tired. She sounds tired even to herself. "What are those?" "Numbers that tell you if you have enough money." "Do we?" Emma asks. Her eyes are so honest. Sofia does not answer. At 8 o'clock, Sofia locks the apartment door behind her. The lock clicks, and the sound is final, like a sentence being handed down. She kisses Emma goodbye at the neighbor's door, promises to be back after her delivery shift and night class. The humid August morning is already making her uniform stick to her skin. "Will you come back?" Emma asks. "Of course, baby. I always come back." The neighbor nods. Mrs. Chen is 73 years old, a widow, and the only reason Sofia can work at all. She watches Emma for free because she says it reminds her of raising her own daughter. Sofia brings her leftovers from the restaurant. Sometimes Mrs. Chen pretends to accept payment by leaving $1 on the table that Sofia finds and puts back. This dance happens every day, and Sofia is grateful for it in a way that is too large for words. The street smells like exhaust and rain coming. Sofia's scooter is parked 3 blocks away because the parking spot near the apartment costs $40 a month, and $40 is the difference between eating and not eating. She walks through the Tenderloin, past storefronts with metal gates down, past people whose lives look like Sofia's looks from the inside, hollowed out, surviving, waiting for something to change. The scooter sputters twice when she turns the key. Her stomach drops. The scooter is the only thing between Sofia and complete immobility. The scooter is how she gets to the restaurants for delivery work. The scooter is how she gets to community college at night. The scooter is how she stays above the waterline. It starts on the 3rd try. At 11:33 in the morning, Sofia is delivering pad thai to a building in the financial district. The order is 3 containers, and she carries them carefully, her knees aching from the 6 other deliveries she has already made. The customer is waiting, a man in a suit that costs more than everything Sofia owns. He is in a hurry. He tips $2 on a $38 order. Sofia thanks him anyway. Gratitude is the only thing Sofia can afford to give. Traffic on Van Ness Avenue is at a standstill. Sofia sits on her scooter, engine off to save gas, studying flashcards balanced on the scooter's seat. Business Finance 101. She is trying to pass her business administration exam on the first attempt because she cannot afford to retake it. The exam is in 2 weeks. She has so much material to cover, and she is so tired. A car honks behind her. She looks up. The light changed. She missed it. She pockets her flashcards and moves the scooter forward. At 3:56 in the afternoon, Sofia is getting yelled at by a customer who says her delivery was 3 minutes late. 3 minutes. The restaurant is 37 minutes away by scooter, and San Francisco traffic is not forgiving. The woman screaming at Sofia is blonde and thin and standing in an air-conditioned apartment with a view of the bay. Sofia apologizes. Sofia always apologizes. "I'm so sorry. I was caught in traffic on Market Street." It won't happen again. It shouldn't have happened in the first place, the woman says, and closes the door. Sofia stands there in the hallway, holding the empty delivery bag, listening to the door lock click into place. At 8:06 in the evening, Sofia picks up her last delivery order of the day from Lucky Dragon restaurant. Her shift manager, David, hands her a large plastic bag, and Sofia's shoulder drops slightly from the weight. This is a big order. Good tips? Maybe. She never knows. You look tired, David says. He is kind. He pays her fairly. He gives her the late-night shift so she can go to community college during the day. I'm fine, Sofia says. This is a lie. Emma doing okay? She's good. Growing like a weed. Eating me out of house and home. David smiles. He does not know that Sofia is not eating. He does not know that Sofia gives everything to Emma and survives on air and determination. Sofia has learned to smile in a way that stops people from asking follow-up questions. The diner is called Rosetti's. It is the kind of place that looks like it has been serving the same food in the same way for 30 years. Red vinyl booths. Black and white checkered floor. A counter with chrome stools. Neon signs in the window advertising beer that nobody drinks anymore. The place smells like coffee and grease and the deep fryer running continuously since the morning shift. Sofia looks at her reflection in the diner window before she walks inside. 26 years old. Looking 36. Hair pulled back so tight it gives her a headache. Grease stain on her collar from a lunch delivery that splashed. Eyes that have forgotten how to look surprised by anything. Uniform hanging on her frame like she is a hanger pretending to be a person. She is invisible. This is the thought that lives in her head while she walks into Rosetti's diner at 8:44 in the evening. She is invisible. She is the girl who delivers your food. You do not see her. You do not think about her. You do not wonder if she has eaten that day. You do not wonder if she has a place to sleep. You do not wonder if the child at home is waiting for her, if that child calls her mama, if that mama title is the only thing keeping her from walking into the bay. She is invisible. The diner is moderately full. It is a Tuesday night, and the crowd is thin but present. Sofia takes the large order from the counter. 2 pad thai. 1 pad cu. 1 tom yum soup. 1 spring roll appetizer. 1 mango sticky rice. She walks to the booth at the back corner. The man sitting in the booth is tall, broad-shouldered, with dark hair silvered at the temples. He is wearing a suit that costs more than the building Sofia lives in. His white shirt is unbuttoned at the collar, showing a chest muscled in the way that comes from privilege, not labor. A gold watch gleams at his wrist. A scar runs from his left eye to his cheekbone, precise as a surgical cut, and it makes him look like someone who has survived things that should have killed him. Rafael Caruso is 51 years old. He is meeting with a federal informant in a diner booth to discuss his brother's betrayal. His own brother has been selling family secrets to enemies for years. Rafael is trying to calculate how many deaths, how many losses, have been orchestrated by the person he grew up with. The man across from him is wearing a wire, though Rafael does not know this yet. Sofia sets the plates down carefully. Her hand is steady, even though her blood sugar is low and her vision is starting to get that particular darkness at the edges that comes from not eating and working 14 hours in the heat. Rafael does not look at her. She is about to leave when his breathing changes. It is subtle. So subtle that most people would not notice. But Sofia has worked in restaurants for 3 years, and she has learned to read bodies the way a hunter reads tracks. She has learned to anticipate needs before they happen, to sense when something is wrong. And something is wrong with this man. His hand goes to his chest. His face pales. His mouth opens slightly, like he is trying to take a breath and cannot quite find the oxygen. So, Sofia says. His eyes find hers. They are dark gray, storm dark, and they are the eyes of someone looking at her for the first time. He tries to speak. Nothing comes out except a small sound, a guttural noise, something that belongs to animals, not men. Then Rafael Caruso, who owns half of San Francisco's underworld, collapses forward onto the pad thai. The diner goes silent. Actual silence. The kind of silence that has weight. Sofia moves. She does not think about it. She does not calculate the risk. She simply moves. Her hands are on his shoulders, turning him, checking his mouth for obstructions. Her mind is running through CPR protocols she learned in a community college first aid class 3 weeks ago. His bodyguards, Marco and Theo and 4 others, are frozen in place, watching their boss, the man they would kill for, the man they have killed for, collapse in front of them like he is made of paper. Sofia pushes the table away. She positions her hands on his chest. The ribs under her palms are solid, muscled. She begins compressions. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 30 compressions, each one delivered with the full weight of her small frame, each one desperate, each one a prayer to a God she does not believe in anymore. She lowers her face to his. She breathes into his mouth. She tastes coffee and expensive cologne and something metallic, something like blood. 30 compressions again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Her shoulders burn. Her vision blurs from exhaustion and hunger and the sheer effort of trying to push life back into a body that does not belong to her. On the 43rd compression, Rafael Caruso's body convulses. His eyes snap open. He gasps, and the sound is like someone remembering how to drown in air instead of water. Marco steps forward. His hand goes to his jacket. Sofia looks up, her own hand still on the man's chest, and for one moment, she sees her own death reflected in Marco's eyes. But Rafael's hand lifts. Just slightly. A gesture so small it almost does not exist. But it is enough. It is everything. It stops Marco mid-motion. It tells 6 trained killers to stand down. The ambulance arrives in 7 minutes. While they wait, Sofia keeps her hands on Rafael Caruso's chest, checking his heartbeat, listening to his breathing. She does not speak. She does not cry. She does not do anything except bear witness to the fact that this man is alive, and it is because of her. Thunder rolls across the city, closer now, and the rain begins in earnest. It hammers against the diner windows like something trying to get in. The marble floors of Rafael Caruso's mansion hummed with the quiet machinery of wealth. Sofia stood in the medical bay converted from what used to be a sitting room, her arm extended on a sterile table, watching her blood flow through clear tubing into a collection bag. Rich crimson, like rubies dissolving into water. The needle in her inner arm was nothing compared to the weight in her chest. Emma, her borrowed daughter, sat 3 feet away in a child-sized chair, coloring. Her small fingers worked methodically across a page, filling in the spaces between lines with a concentration that made her look ancient for 6 years old. She had learned not to ask questions. She had learned to be small, quiet, invisible. The doctor, a woman with kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses, monitored the pressure. "How are you feeling, Sofia?" "Fine," Sofia whispered. It was a lie. Her head swam like she was underwater. She had not eaten since yesterday. Her body was converting itself into fuel. But this bag of blood, this bag was worth $50,000. A quarter of what she needed to stop the foreclosure notice from becoming real. That crumpled paper sat in her jacket pocket like a living thing. 5 days. She had 5 days before the bank seized everything. The fluorescent light overhead buzzed in a rhythm that made her teeth ache. She closed her eyes and thought about Emma's face when Marco had said the car would come for them. The way her hand had trembled in Sofia's as they drove through the city, watching the broken storefronts give way to manicured gardens, to gates tall enough to keep the world out. The collection bag hung fuller now. Almost complete. "You're doing beautifully," the doctor said, and there was something like reverence in her voice. "Not everyone can do this twice in 2 days." Twice. Sofia's body remembered the first donation, the needle sliding in at 9 a.m. yesterday, the 90 minutes watching her life drain into plastic. She had been dizzy for hours afterward. Her hands still trembled if she held them still too long. But Rafael's daughter Lucia had needed it. The internal bleeding, the complications from surgery, the machine screaming in a language only doctors understood. And the moment Rafael said they needed more blood, Sofia had not hesitated. She had driven straight back, left Emma with Marco's wife in the kitchen downstairs, and offered her arm again. Marco had looked at her like she was something made of starlight. "You do not have to. She is dying," Sofia had said simply. "I can help." That was all. That was everything. The needle withdrew. The technician pressed gauze to the puncture wound, wrapped it with tape, helped Sofia sit up slowly. The room tilted. She gripped the table edge. Breathed. Emma appeared at her side immediately, still holding her crane. She did not ask if Sofia was okay. She just took Sofia's free hand and held it. The gesture was so purely love that Sofia's throat closed. "All done, little one," the doctor said, handing Emma a lollipop from a jar. "Your mama is very brave." The word hung in the air like something sacred. Mama. Emma had never called her that before. Sofia had been mama figure, mama substitute, the woman who braided her hair and read her stories and shared a mattress with her in a borrowed room that smelled like mold and old cigarettes. But mama was a legal word. Mama was a promise. Mama was what you called the person you belonged to. Emma unwrapped the lollipop, stuck it in her mouth, and leaned against Sofia's thigh. The weight of her was real. Was solid. Was proof that something true existed in this world. Marco stood in the doorway, and his expression had shifted into something unreadable. He stepped aside as they moved toward the hallway, but his eyes tracked Sofia like she had just performed a miracle instead of merely bled. Rafael waited in the corridor outside the medical bay. He wore an open black shirt, no jacket, the scar running from the outside corner of his right eye down to his cheekbone visible in the afternoon light streaming through the skylights. He was 42, built like the earth itself, with dark hair graying at the temples and eyes that contained the weight of every decision he had ever made. His men said he had ordered 17 executions in his career. But right now, watching Sofia emerge pale and shaking from the medical bay, he looked like a man watching his daughter learn to walk. Sofia. Her name in his voice was something solid. An oath. A promise. You should not have come back so soon. Your daughter needed. My daughter needed blood, he interrupted, and his voice was quiet like a knife wrapped in leather. But you needed food. You needed rest. You needed to say no. Sofia said nothing. How could she explain that saying no was a luxury she had never been able to afford? That watching someone die when you had the power to stop it would destroy something essential in her, some core thing that made her human. Emma tugged Sofia's hand, pulling her attention downward. Can we see the twins again? The twins. Lucia and Emma. They shared names with her Emma, and the coincidence had struck Rafael like a physical blow when Sofia mentioned it. He had actually closed his eyes for a moment, as if the universe had just whispered something important. They are in the garden, Rafael said, and a ghost of something like a smile crossed his face. With the nurse. They have been asking about you. They walked together through the mansion, Sofia and Emma and Rafael, with Marco trailing 3 steps behind like a guardian spirit. The hallways of the Caruso house were lined with paintings that probably belonged in museums, Caravaggio and Vermeer and artists whose names Sofia did not know. The walls were a pale cream, the trim gold leaf. Everything here cost more than Sofia's entire existence. Through tall windows, San Francisco sprawled below them, a city divided by elevation. The poor lived in the valleys. The rich lived in the heights. Rafael lived in the clouds. The garden was enclosed by walls 12 feet high, visible only from certain angles. Inside, flowers bloomed in geometric precision, roses the color of blood, lavender like frozen prayers, jasmine that smelled like old memory. 2 girls sat on a marble bench, coloring, a nurse positioned discreetly beside them. When they saw Sofia, they stood immediately. They were small, perhaps 8 years old, with dark hair and dark eyes that held their father's intensity even at their young age. Lucia and Emma. Rafael's daughters. The children who belonged to the underworld by birth but who had been innocent until last week, until the car accident changed everything. Sofia, little Emma cried, and she ran forward without hesitation. She hugged Sofia's legs, burying her face in Sofia's thighs. You came back. I told Lucia you would come back. People who save you come back. Something in Sofia's chest fractured open. She looked at Rafael across the garden, and she saw the moment he understood what she was feeling. He had lost people. His brother. His trust. His ability to believe that anyone would choose him without wanting something in return. But here was Sofia, bleeding herself empty for his children, holding his daughter like she was her own, and asking for nothing except to know they would live. Marco whispered something to Theo, who had appeared from nowhere the way Rafael's men always did. The whisper was brief, but Sofia caught the edge of it. 15 years. I have never seen him look at anyone like that. Rafael extended his hand to help Sofia to the bench. She took it. His palm was warm, calloused, the skin of a man who had worked for his power instead of simply inheriting it. She thought about his hands, about where they had been, what they had done. She thought about the 17 executions. She thought about the brother who betrayed him. She did not let go. They sat together while the children colored, while the afternoon light stretched long across the garden, while the city breathed below them. Rafael's daughter Emma fell asleep against Sofia's shoulder. Little Emma, Sofia's Emma, leaned against Sofia's other side. 2 children, 2 names, 2 futures that had somehow become intertwined. Why did you save my life? Rafael asked quietly. The question he had been holding since the diner, since the moment she had blown breath into his mouth. Sofia watched his daughters sleep. Because the alternative was unacceptable. You did not know me. No, she said. But I knew you deserved to live. That your children deserved to have a father. That would have been true whether you had money or nothing at all. Rafael was quiet for so long that Sofia thought perhaps she had answered wrong. That maybe rich men did not want to be told their worth was not tied to their empire. But then he said, no one has ever said that to me before. The sun was setting now, painting the garden in shades of copper and gold. Somewhere in the city, a siren wailed. Somewhere below, in the valleys, people were counting their dollars like Sofia had once counted her breaths. But here in the garden, in this suspended moment, there was only the sound of children sleeping and the quiet hum of a man learning to hope again. What neither of them knew was that Anthony Hargrove stood on the other side of the garden wall, watching. That his face had twisted into something made of poison and rage. That he was already planning how to use Sofia Winters as leverage. How to prove to his uncle that sentiment was weakness. That trust was a blade that could be turned inward. The garden gates remained closed. The walls remained high. But above them, the gates to the city opened wide, and somewhere in the evening traffic, Evelyn Blackwell was already dialing her phone, already whispering Sofia's name like a curse into the ears of women who specialized in social destruction. 3 days had passed since Sofia's blood filled the transfusion bags. 3 times she had lain in a medical chair while needles drew what little strength she had left. The twins survived the surgery. Lucia and Emma, Rafael's daughters, 5 years old, their eyes the same storm gray as their father, opened their eyes in the recovery room to machines beeping soft rhythms and their father's hand steady on each small forehead. Sofia had earned $150,000. She stood in Rafael's mansion now, her reflection ghostly in the marble hallway. The foreclosure notice, that crumpled paper that had lived in her pocket for 6 months like a curse, sat on the kitchen counter downstairs. She could pay it. She could save the apartment. She could stop counting every dollar like it was air in her lungs. But her body felt hollow. Weak. The nurses had warned her, donate too frequently and you become a shell of yourself. Your iron drops. Your oxygen crashes. Your heart works harder to pump blood that isn't there. Marco had driven her to her community college class that afternoon. She was studying business administration, 2 night classes a week, still working deliveries during the day, though Rafael had quietly made it known that she no longer needed to. She had told him no. She had told him she could not take money from him, could not be kept, could not become what everyone would whisper about. He had listened. He had not argued. But he had told Marco to follow her everywhere. And to always drive her. At 2 p.m. that Thursday, walking from the mansion's curved driveway toward the street where Marco waited with the car, Sofia saw the black SUV pull up fast. Too fast. No signal, no intention to announce itself. Just stopped. Engine running. Anthony Hargrove stepped out. He was tall, 28, with his father's cruel mouth and his mother's thin, elegant nose. His suit was Valentino, his shoes custom Italian leather, his watch a Rolex that cost more than Sofia's entire life. But his eyes were drunk and burning with something that made her stomach drop like a stone. "Sofia Winters," he said, and his voice was syrup poured over broken glass. "You have become very famous." She did not answer. She took a step backward. The mansion gates were still 30 feet away, but they felt like 30 miles. "My uncle is very protective of you," Anthony continued, moving closer. "It is interesting. In 15 years, I have watched him build an empire by crushing people like insects. And now he sits at dinner with a charity case who smells like pad thai." He laughed, a sound like something dying. "Tell me, does he know what you did before this? Before you saved his life?" "I don't know what you mean." "Ah, but you do." He moved faster than she expected. His hand gripped her arm where the donation bandage was, where the needle marks were still bruising into purple. Where her skin was paper-thin and ached with every heartbeat. He squeezed. Pain shot through her arm like lightning. She gasped. Her knees nearly buckled. "You think you are special," Anthony whispered, his breath hot and reeking of whiskey. "You think my uncle cares about you? You are a nobody, Sofia. A delivery girl playing dress-up in a mansion that will never be yours. I could make you disappear tonight, and in 1 week, he would forget your name." He squeezed harder. "I could make sure that little girl you drag everywhere ends up just like everyone else who gets too close to this family." He shoved her against the brick wall. The impact knocked the air from her lungs. Then he released her. He stepped back. He smiled, a smile like a knife wrapped in ice, and climbed back into the SUV. She heard the engine roar. She heard the tires grip asphalt. Then he was gone, leaving her shaking against the wall, her arms screaming, her breath coming in sharp gasps. That evening, Sofia took Emma to the community center. The free dinner. The safe place where nobody asked questions and families like theirs could eat something warm without shame. They had been coming for 8 months. The volunteers knew Emma by name. They smiled when Sofia walked in. The room went silent. Not gradually. All at once. Like a switch. Patricia, the coordinator, a woman with kind eyes and grey streaking her hair, a woman who had always made Sofia feel welcome, approached with her lips pressed into a line so tight they almost disappeared. "Sofia, I'm sorry. We've received some complaints." "Complaints?" Sofia's hand found Emma's shoulder. Emma pressed closer. Patricia held out her phone. The society blog post filled the screen. Mafia mistress milking charity while living in luxury. The photograph showed Sofia entering Rafael's gates, her hand on the iron, her face tilted upward toward the mansion. The caption read, "Rafael Caruso's new companion flaunts stolen wealth while deceiving the poor." Below it, quotes from anonymous sources close to the Caruso family. The language was Evelyn's, precise, cutting, designed to wound in a way that ordinary cruelty could never touch. She seduced him while he was vulnerable. She is using his children. Her motives are purely financial. By 11 p.m., the blog had been shared 5,000 times. By midnight, 10,000. By 3 a.m., when Sofia sat on the roof of her borrowed building, the post had infected its way across every society page, every gossip forum, every corner of San Francisco's wealthy circles that Evelyn Blackwell controlled like a puppeteer with strings made of whispers. The humid August night pressed down like a coffin lid. Thunder rolled somewhere distant, but the rain would not come. The sky held its breath. Sofia's hands shook as she held the printed blog post. Her foreclosure notice sat beside it. $150,000 in her bank account. Everything destroyed. All of it. Emma was asleep inside, in Rafael's mansion, because Sofia had been too weak to refuse when the doctors said she needed monitoring, when Rafael had quietly prepared a room with yellow walls and a bookshelf full of children's stories. Emma had called it the castle. Emma had asked if they could stay. Sofia had said no. They were just visiting. But that was a lie. Something inside Sofia had stopped resisting. Something had started to hope. And now that thing was dying. Her phone buzzed at 3:11 a.m. A text from Marco, in all capitals, "Boss needs you. Emergency." The twins. Sofia's hand moved before her mind caught up. Her thumb typed, "Coming." One thread. That was all it took. One person saying she was needed. One reason to step back from the edge. The mansion was blazing with light when she arrived at 4:15 a.m. Not the warm golden light of evening. This was the cold white light of crisis. Medical light. Marco stood at the entrance, his face unreadable, but his jaw clenched so tight she could see the muscle moving. "The twins are fine," he said quietly. "The boss is waiting for you in his study." Rafael stood at the window, his silhouette cut from shadow. He wore a black shirt, the sleeves rolled to his elbows, and his hands were completely still at his sides. The scar that ran from his left eye to his cheekbone caught the city lights below, a reminder of something violent, something survived. "Show me your arm," he said. "Rafael." "Show me." She pushed up her sleeve. The bruises were perfect fingerprints, fresh and deep purple, overlaid on top of the donation bandage. They were a map of Antony's hands, a geography of violence written on her skin. Rafael's entire body went rigid. She watched his jaw clench. She heard his teeth grind, a sound like stone against stone. He made one phone call. His voice, when he spoke, was flat, "The nephew." Now. At 5:03 a.m., 12 men in tactical black moved through Antony's apartment building like smoke. Not Rafael's men, these were professionals from a family that owed Rafael Caruso a favor so enormous it could be paid only in blood and broken things. They took Antony from his bed. He was screaming before they even had him fully awake, his Valentino sheets tangled around his legs, his custom leather shoes left behind on the marble floor. He begged. He cried. He screamed that he was blood, that he was family, that Rafael would regret this. Marco stood in the hallway outside Antony's apartment. His voice was flat, professional, a man delivering a simple truth. "Mr. Caruso sends his regards. You threatened what he protects. There are consequences." "I'm blood." Antony's voice cracked like a child's. "I'm family." "You are your father's son," Marco said. "That blood means nothing." The van doors closed. Antony Hargrove was handed over to the Castellano family, the very family he had humiliated in a territory deal 3 years prior. He would disappear into their operation as the lowest enforcer, the smallest grunt, his name erased and his debt eternal. Decades of servitude in a prison with no walls. 40 years would feel like mercy compared to this. Meanwhile, at 9 a.m. that same morning, Evelyn Blackwell arranged her face into a smile for her charity brunch. 20 women surrounded her table. Crystal flute sweated condensation. The penthouse overlooked the entire city, a view worth more than entire city blocks. The federal agents arrived like a storm without warning. They did not knock. They simply opened the doors, and suddenly there were badges and voices saying words like conspiracy, wire fraud, money laundering. Evelyn's scream was the most honest sound she had ever made. Her ex-husband Robert's betrayal had given Rafael everything he needed: financial records that connected Evelyn's accounts to laundering operations, documents she had signed with her own careful handwriting. Rafael had held these records for 3 years, waiting, patient. The moment Evelyn touched Sofia's reputation, he had walked into the FBI field office and laid them on a desk like an offering. As they put the handcuffs on her wrists, her friends melted away like snow. The cameras, the same cameras she had courted her entire life, captured her face, the shock, the humiliation, the complete and utter collapse of everything she had built. 40 years in federal prison awaited her? Her assets frozen. Her reputation ash. Rafael stood across the street with Sofia, watching. The morning sun cut between the buildings, and he looked like something carved from marble and rage and something else, something Sofia could not name yet. "No one humiliates what is mine," he said quietly. Sofia's arm throbbed. Her body still ached from the blood donations. Emma slept safe inside his mansion, in the yellow room, under blankets embroidered with constellations. And for the first time since she had blown breath into his mouth to save his life, Sofia wondered if being his was not a cage. It was a shelter. 2 weeks later, the mansion breathed like it had finally learned how to live again. Emma's laughter echoed down the marble hallway, mixed with the high-pitched squeals of 2 small girls with dark curling hair and Raphael's storm-grey eyes. Sofia's Emma, because that is how she was claimed now, not borrowed anymore, but chosen, ran between the twins like they had been sisters her entire life instead of the past 14 days. The yellow room upstairs had become their kingdom. 3 small beds pushed together. Blankets embroidered with constellations. A shelf of books Sofia read aloud every single night, her voice carrying through the halls while Raphael stood in doorways and listened like she was singing prayers. Sofia sat at the library table, her community college textbooks spread across mahogany that cost more than her first car. Microeconomics. English composition. Biology. Her finals were in 8 days. Raphael's lawyers had erased the foreclosure notice in an afternoon, $40,000 transferred from an account she did not know existed, the apartment building's new owner suddenly aware that the fire had been no accident, that certain negligence had consequences. The notice, once crumpled and yellow with her fingerprints, now sat in a frame in Sofia's room. Not a symbol of loss anymore. A symbol of the moment everything changed. Raphael entered quietly. He always moved that way now when he knew she was studying, like her concentration mattered, like her future mattered. Like she mattered. He sat across from her without speaking, and for a long moment, he simply watched her read, her finger tracing underlined passages, her lips moving silently over organic chemistry equations she would master by Friday. "The twins asked me something today," he said finally. His voice was deep and solid like an oath, but softer now. "Changed. They asked if you were staying." Sofia looked up. Her dark eyes, once hollow with exhaustion, now held something that looked almost like certainty. "What did you tell them?" "I told them I did not have the answer." "Only you do." He paused. The rain outside began then, not a storm, but a gentle breaking of the August heat, drops sliding down the library windows like tears of relief. 15 years I have run this empire. 15 years since my own brother sold my secrets to the families that wanted me dead. I learned that blood means nothing. Loyalty is the only language worth speaking. But I never learned what to do when someone walks through your walls and does not demand anything in return. Sofia closed her textbook. The motion felt deliberate, ceremonial. "You performed CPR on a stranger," Raphael continued. "You did not know who I was. You did not ask what you would get. You simply saved my life because I was dying and you could help. Then you donated your blood 3 times for my daughters, knowing nothing about them except that they needed saving. You stood in a room with $200,000 in medical bills and did not flinch. You did not run. You stayed." "I stayed because I had nowhere else to go," Sofia said quietly. "No." Raphael leaned forward. His scar caught the lamplight, the thin silver line running from his eye to his cheekbone, a map of violence and survival. You stayed because you chose to open your heart. Fear is choosing to close yourself off. That is what my brother did. Trust is choosing to open your heart even when the world has given you every reason to seal it shut. You taught me that. Sofia felt the words settle into her chest like they had always belonged there. I'm terrified. Of what? Of this world. Of what staying means. Of becoming someone I do not recognize. Of losing, she stopped. Of losing what you have finally built, Rafael finished. The family. The home. Emma calling you Mama in the yellow room under blankets full of stars. The word Mama hung in the air between them like a prayer. Running footsteps erupted from the hallway. 3 small voices, pitched high and urgent. Emma burst through the library doors, breathless, her borrowed daughter face flushed with excitement, with belonging. Behind her came the twins, identical in their insistence, their small hands grabbing at Sofia's cardigan. Will you read us the story? Emma asked. The one with the princess who is not afraid. Sofia gathered all 3 of them, a 17-year-old girl who had become a mother, and 2 4-year-old daughters who had been dying and were now running through a mansion like it was theirs. Because it was theirs. Rafael watched from his chair as Sofia settled onto the floor, the girls arranging themselves in her lap and against her sides. She opened the book with her voice trembling slightly, reading about a princess who chose trust over fear, who opened her heart despite everything. Marco and Theo stood in the doorway, watching. They had been with Rafael for 11 years. They had seen him calculate murders in the time it took to finish a glass of wine. They had watched him move through the underworld like something carved from ice and silence. They had never, in all that time, seen his expression the way it was now, cracked open, vulnerable, something almost like peace settling across his features. In 15 years, I never thought I would see him smile like that, Theo whispered. She saved more than his life, Marco said. His voice carried the weight of understanding, of watching an empire crumble and rebuild itself into something stronger. She saved what was left of his heart. That evening, Sofia and Rafael stood on the mansion balcony. The city lights stretched below them like fallen stars, and the humid August air that had threatened heat now broke into rain, gentle, cleansing, the kind of rain that washes away what came before. Emma slept upstairs with the twins, all 3 in the same room by choice, their breathing synchronized, their small bodies tangled together in sleep. You gave me a second chance at belonging, Rafael said. His hand brushed against hers on the railing. Not quite holding, but close. At family. At the thing I thought I had lost when my brother betrayed me. Sofia turned to face him. The rain caught in her dark hair, and she looked like something between the girl who had stepped off a beat-up scooter 2 weeks ago and the woman she was becoming. You gave me the same. I stood in ashes 6 months ago, holding only a photograph. I had $200 in my pocket and a foreclosure notice. I had nothing. And then you chose to let me stay. You chose to let us stay. The space between them was no longer empty. It was filled with something that tasted like trust and looked like family and felt like the choice they had both made to open their hearts despite every reason not to. Rafael reached across that space and took her hand. His grip was warm, solid, the grip of a man learning that the most dangerous thing you can do is love, but it is also the only thing that makes life worth living. Sofia came into Rafael Caruso's world with nothing but $200 in her pocket and a crumpled foreclosure notice. A delivery girl on a beat-up scooter, navigating August humidity and stiff tips, working doubles to keep a borrowed daughter safe in a borrowed room. She saved a stranger's life in a diner booth at 3 in the morning without knowing who he was. She donated her blood 3 times for his daughters, not because she wanted power or wealth, but because children needed saving and she could help. When the spoiled nephew threatened her with violence and the wealthy ex-wife tried to destroy her reputation, burning through her social circles like wildfire, Sofia did not run. She stayed. She stayed because she had already become part of a family that chose her. Not the family written in blood, but the family written in choice. The family built on the foundation of one person deciding to trust when everything in the world screamed at her to close herself off. The twins are running and laughing. Emma is calling her mama without hesitation, without fear. Rafael stands in doorways and watches his empire transform into something he never thought he would have again, a home. A real home, not a fortress. A place where people choose to stay because they are loved, not because they are afraid. If this story moved you, hit that like button and share it with someone who needs to remember that family is what we build, not just what we are born into. Subscribe because tomorrow we have another story about the choices that change everything. Drop a comment telling us, have you ever had to choose between fear and trust? What did you choose? We read every single one. Thank you for staying with us until the very end. Remember this, the most dangerous thing you can do is open your heart, but it is also the only thing that makes life worth living. Every day we choose between fear and trust, between closing ourselves off and opening our hearts. Sofia chose to open hers, and it gave her everything she had lost and more than she ever dreamed she would find. We wish all of you watching this video good health, a joyful life, and days filled with peace and happiness. No matter how hard life gets, remember that after the rain, the sky clears. Goodbye, and we will see you again in the next video.